And we are off to the races.
We're live.
We're alive, we're alive, we're alive. My clock, said the astrologer, is not telling the truth because my family was all screwed up. So it didn't really allow me to be a normal person. But now I'm here to help you. Ready, set. Only an astrologer takes the light out of the room. Most people have to put the light in the room. Okay, kids, are we ready? Carrie, you want to introduce this topic?
Yep, it's making peace with your screwed up family. And I'm going to put a link in the comments. The best way to find compassion for your family is to take the Applied Astrology School. So make sure you click the link in the description and also in the comments.
Right. Okay, so we're going to talk about karma based on your chart in the name of your family dynamics, which for you advanced astrologers, obviously it's the fourth house, gives you the clue. But for you beginning astrologers or people that are simply flirting with the idea of being an astrologer or studying, there are indicators in your chart that talk about the karma or the dynamics that come with your lifetime. And we come with these people that I call the pods. It's like we come in pods like dolphins do, and we swim together over lifetimes. And there's some people that you can't get rid of. Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines. I made it up. There's some people you can't get rid of, and they're usually the karmic people who have been repetitively in and often seemingly dressed up as the villain or the perpetrator or the one that's so unconscious in comparison to you. And what Alice Bailey says essentially is that the older the soul, the bigger the story. So for those of you that have really screwed up families, here's the good news. Here's the update. There's some indication that that quality of your family dynamic being so off base or so confusing was the opportunity for you as a soul to rewrite the story. And it's a very difficult thing to do. It takes a highly evolved spirit to rewrite the story. And furthermore, so the first step is to rewrite the story, to interpret what happened to you in your lifetime and who the people, the characters are, into lemons into lemonade. That's the short version. The other part is that I really want you to hear in the name of the Aquarian age, because that's what astrology, why astrology has gotten so popular, why you're watching this video is astrology is an ancient religion. Is it a religion? An ancient thought process that came with a spiritual overlay that says destiny is meant to be, and there's a quality of fate and determination that's already in place, and there's some beings and factors that are going to come into your world that you didn't get a vote about. So astrology suggests that your karma is described in the chart, and not only in the chart, but in your family dynamics. So the Aquarian age, what I wanted to make my second point is you're allowed to walk away from your family. Not that you would shut your heart, but you're allowed to say, you know what? Those people were my karmic agreements. They were my repetitive teachers. They were the people I couldn't get rid of. But in this lifetime, in honor of your healthy soul, if you are imprinting on a new storyline, you can look at your family guilt-free in the Aquarian age and say, not so much. In the Piscean age, the last 2,000 years, we didn't get a vote. We were stuck with families, and if you were to leave your tribe or leave your community, or shtetl, it's a great word in Yiddish for community, you would be all by yourself. See, here's the neighbors making noises. Watch this. Such a great symbol. You can close the door on the neighbors. Do you love that? And the karma is not described just by Saturn. The karma is described by the dynamics of the chart. So for example, I just worked with a woman who had a lot of red lines in her chart, and she had Saturn sitting on her ascendant. You could say Saturn's one of the big determining factors, but she couldn't get out from underneath her karma. The red lines were so intense that she bound herself to her mother. She just finished a session this morning and said, at 30, her mom got sick. She's now almost 60. She's 52. She's in her 50s. And she's determined to stay committed and bound to her mother's well-being because the karma involved between the two of them was so thick that she can't separate from it. And her chart as a Scorpio Taurus, that's the nature of loyalty, Scorpio Taurus, Leo Aquarius, and she was Aquarius rising. She couldn't separate herself from the definitions of old that had loyalty being committed to your family. In the Piscean age, that was necessary. You couldn't possibly have left the town without not having anyone to go to. There was no telephone or no new friends you can meet over the fence without the message being carried that you left your town. Well, why did you leave your town? Because my family was abusive. Well, your family was abusive and you left? That was a very strong judgment. You weren't allowed to leave. Now we're in the era where you're allowed to leave. So, first of all, the people in your cast of characters in your story came in to teach you lessons. You couldn't get rid of them when you were a kid. That was a destined factual story. That was your mom and your dad and your brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. And you got imprinted by the patterns in your childhood that are described in your chart. So if you have a sun moon that are easily aspected, let's say your sun was in Aries and your moon's in Leo, and they're both in fire. This is what you learn in the beginner astrology class. Just starting with the sun, the moon, and the rising, just using those three basic influences, the sun being your personality, the moon being your emotional body, and the rising sign being your higher self. So those are the three triangular essences that determine the externalization of your character. That's how you show up in the world. There's a whole bunch underneath the system. Those are the other 7 planets where your mind goes and what your life lesson is and where your illusions are. But to start with, the triangle is the sun, moon, and rising. And your family determines the quality of your character by how those relationships are. So if you have a difficult sun, moon, and rising, they're not in harmony. So if one of them's in fire and one of them's in water, which don't get along, that's a simple beginner conversation, then your family dynamics probably are going to reflect that to you. Your brother and sister may have had a really good childhood. To them, they had an entirely different vantage point. But in your karma, your parent chose you to be the one that they picked on. Isn't that interesting how in one family, the older kids could get the harsh, the mean parent, and then the younger kids get the relaxed parent? It's a completely different story. That's called karma. So let's say in your chart, your family is clearly a dysfunctional. And I mean, I want to say that everyone listening to this, and we've got quite a few of you sitting in this room, you had dysfunctional families. It's the nature of the beast. My theory is in order to come in to be a human, you get at the front gate and they say, are you sure you want to go down there? Because it's a little crazy. And you say yes. And then they give you a karma, it's kind of like a booklet that I think is called the Akashic Records, where the sequence of stories and lessons come in order. And then your families are fit to those characters and those storylines. And they repeat themselves, those characters like your dad or your mom or your brother or your sister, or maybe it's your best friend, your family. They keep coming back in with you. And then the lessons repeat themselves. I see it all the time. And yes, in a chart, you can definitely see, even at the beginning level, you can see what repetitive pattern. In the second class of the astrology level 1, you deal specifically with the sun, moon, and rising and Mercury and what the thought process is that's going to continually repeat itself. That's your family. Think about what happened in your child. Let's take a minute, make it practical. Okay. So I can use my story. I was the youngest of 3. I was the only girl. And so I was special. I like to use that word, special. So because I was the youngest and I was the only girl, I imagine they wanted me. I make up that story. However, so there was a quality in my sun and moon are sextiled. I have sun in Gemini and moon in Aries, and it's compatible. So I experienced the desire body at some level of my parents externally enjoying their little girl. At the under level of my chart, my moon squares my Mars. That's the moon, the emotional body. So it gets a little deeper now. And my mom apparently wanted to have an abortion. She didn't really want the 3rd child. And apparently, if I wasn't a girl, she was going to send me back. And my grandmother kissed the doctor when I was born, thanking him for making me a girl. He was like, you're welcome. Because if I wasn't a girl, it would have been a nightmare for my mom to have had 3 boys. So I came with an undercurrent of emotional not being wanted. I felt that. But at the surface level, my personality, the sun and moon and rising are all very compatible. And I was a little girl that provided an upbeat, happy voice in the middle of the story. There's my church bells going off. So that was the celebration of my birth. So I was wanted at one level conditionally because I was a girl. That got imprinted. So I have a very confident personality. I've had that for a long time. But my undercurrent, my unconscious mind got imprinted by my dysfunctional family, starting with my feeling of not being wanted. Now, all of you could probably, it would pay you great benefit to say to your mom, because our parents were so unconscious, did you want me? And what was your birth like? Because the dysfunction began at birth in the birthing process, which I think I told the group yesterday. I was born under the effect of drugs and I wasn't nursed. And so I had an attachment disorder to some level with my mother. Then it came through my family dynamics in my chart, Moon square Mars, but my personality was very shiny and bubbly. And so this is what I want to say to you about your dysfunctional family. If your chart, if the sun, moon, and rising, which you learn in level 1 in the second class, just that, your personality, your emotional body, and your soul are not compatible. And this is what you learn at level 2 and level 3. The first thing you do when you look at someone's chart is you go, what's the nature of their outward expression based on their personality, sun, moon, and rising? If it's compatible, if it's all fire and air, or it's all earth and water, or it's all earth, or it's all fire, if it's compatible, you add air to the fire, that's compatible. Fire and air people love to be together. If you add water to the earth grows, that's compatible. But if you put water and fire together in someone's psyche, one part of their fire personality wants to be loud and the water, so emotional, wants to be quiet, that's a conflict that was probably put in place by your personal karma. I would say it's pretty much 98% accurate. Then your family dysfunction is going to either interrupt that with more, compound it, and then you'll have to wait to get healed. So the karma shows up, yes, in your own chart, then the family dynamics, and then the ultimate, what I really want you to hear today is, and here's where the road really becomes an upward climb. You decide to step away from the family karma, to step even away from your chart, to find the observer position, which is what my book is about, the missing element. It really helps you grow your observer, where you step back and you go, okay, my family was really screwed up. Mine was. My chart was very gentle as far as my outward personality. I appeared healthy and bubbly. And then I had to make the confusing understanding of, why was my family so suffering and miserable? Why was I aiming for happy and joy because of my little Gemini, Aries, Libra? And how do I meet these two lands in the middle? I know I'll go do therapy. And that is a spiritual practice, to enter into that initial conversation, even though it's so dated and the new age wants to walk over this. And we don't want to talk about your dysfunctional family because everyone has one. But if you look at John Bradshaw's work, or if you look at Beatty's work, Codependent No More, or if you look at the alcoholic child who had alcoholic parents, all of those factors in the childhood that create these stories are the grist for the mill to get your soul activated to go take all those lemons to your therapist and say, can you help me make lemonade? Now that's what the astrology class is for. It breeds compassion. It fosters compassion because your family was screwed up and your chart may have come in. Not only did you have a difficult sun, moon, and rising, that's the first step. Not only did you have parents who didn't get along, not only did you have a school system that wasn't supporting your individuality, but then you had your own psychological patterns that you came in with in previous lives, better known as your South Node. There's a lot of, this is the therapist in me talking, a lot of components that are going to support your psyche to stay oppressed. Or should you do the astrology class? Should you go do therapy? The first level of the astrology class is a therapy class. You spend 6 weeks studying your chart, from the sun, moon, and rising to your Mercury and how you think, to your shadow and what's interrupting you and sabotaging you, to your life lesson. All the classes from the first level are just entrances into those topics. Your elemental constitutions, the first class, sun, moon, and rising. How does your mind work? What's your shadow? And what's your life lesson? That's the first class. Because if psychologically you use the grist for the mill of your wounds, of your childhood, of your karma, of your icky personality, or your delightful, my problem was people liked me and didn't know that under the system I was so sad. So it doesn't matter what the surface of the sun, moon, and rising are, whether it's pain or it's difficult, or it's pain or it's easy. Because some of you still have to unearth and open the suitcase and unpack what's under the system to relieve yourself of the pressure of thinking something's wrong with you. Every one of you sitting and listening to this today have some inkling that there's something about you. Either you drink too much coffee, or you smoke too many cigarettes, or you haven't had sex in years, or you've had too much sex, or you don't really like your job, or you've never been married, or you've been married 4 times, or you have a kid that's been a problem. Everyone has a story. Your heart's been broken, and then it got healed, and then it got broken. I love this shirt. And then you had to ask yourself, if all of these stories are universal, as Debra suggests, that everybody comes in with grist for the mill, if the exercise of incarnation has to do with a deliberate effort by your soul to take on the weight of the world, like, oh my God, like take it in with the ultimate intention to get it off you. So all of my work, and it starts with a beginning, you can't work with me without getting your chart done. If you wanted to come do an intensive where people come and spend a day and a half with me, and this is exactly what I do. I look at the chart, and then I look at the family karma, and I have the person tell me their entire story from their grandparents' lineage all the way to their first kiss, their first sexual experience, to the school, the teachers, the high school, the elementary school, all the way to college. What was the storyline this lifetime that has shaped you into your character, that has gotten some well-worn pathways in your amygdala where you go automatic, and your observer's nowhere near, where you say things to yourself like, see, it happened again. Changing the narrative of your story is the essence of astrology. It gives you a language to reinterpret your, can I swear, your screwed up family. It gives you a language to reinterpret your screwed up personality. And then once that observer's on and you've got all your lemons and you're going over to the store to turn into lemonades, that's when freedom begins. That's when the sun comes out. That's when the life begins. We're going to have a talk this week about, or next week, about abundance, the abundance. I can't show you my bun, but the abundance. Because you can't do abundance if you've got too many rocks and blocks and stuff in your backpack from your childhood that you believed were true. So let me relieve you. Every single person in this room, every single person that views this video, not one of you are exempt. You will have a storyline somewhere where your heart got broken and you got destroyed, or you got misinterpreted, or you got lied to, or you got betrayed, or you got hurt, or you got ill, or you got broken, or your finances stopped, or your kid got sick. Every single one of you. You didn't have kids, you couldn't have kids, you couldn't get married. And my love for you is that you're not alone. So if your parents got sick at a young age, if your dad died, if your mother was a floozy and she was so sexual and you knew it, I'm thinking of all the stories I've heard in my practice. If your husband abused you and no one believed you when you went to tell the family, they turned on you and stayed with your husband. That was the last client I just worked with for an intensive. That's the grist for the mill. That's the lemons. And there's millions of them. But it's up to you to choose to take the astrology class, or do this yoga classes on a regular basis, or go do therapy, or go get yourself self-help books. I'm all about the levels require this. You start off at a very young age when you've just incarnated and you came into a, maybe after, I think I was a peasant in lots of lives, which is why I think I'm so appreciating every drip of this ecstatic life I've been given this lifetime. I never, ever forget to say thank you, or the food is so delicious to me, or the heat's on, or the air conditioning's on. I'm like, wow, because I think I've spent a lot of lifetimes down in the trenches with an experience of this reality that was not so easy, so that I get muscles to be able to come up and out. So let's say you had a series of lifetimes, and we all did. We weren't all Cleopatra in our last life. You had a series of lifetimes where you kept on having these really difficult paths. Now, this lifetime in 2018, you're on a computer, which tells me you've got the time during this day to find the replay or watch this live right now. You've got some luxury. Beep, 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 beep. It is true. And we are here to remember that the story can be changed. You are not bound to the version of your karma. You can change it in an instant, but you have to take the lemons to the lemonade store. How long will this beat go? And when you get to the lemonade store and it's astrology classes, or it's therapy, or it's you going to your yoga class, or it's you turning to your husband and saying, I realize my dysfunctional family has been my excuse to not make our family functional. You can't continue to use the old wound to bring you into current time, because that's just ridiculous. That's the sins of our fathers become our sins that we hand to our children, that gets carried on into infinity. But I came to change the story, and I'm inviting you to do the same. And I've had to walk uphill. Oh, now there's two. Can you hear it, Carrie?
Yeah, I can only hear one though.
It's just the opportunity in every moment to use the interruptions, to use the interference, to use the sabotage, or to say, like, let's use an example. So my son's father, it's done, had a disease and he died of the disease. That's a heavy karmic imprint. My son has a grand cross in his chart. He has 4 planets that are all at 90-degree angles. It should be no surprise when I saw the chart when he was born, because he was born almost 3 weeks late. And I was like, no, no, the Grand Cross is coming. He got it smack dab on the day. So his karma, like mine, I have a T-square. That's what you want to look for, red lines in your chart. See, I'm going to reframe for you in the class. The worse the story is, the harder the issue is with your family, the more momentum there is to lift it up and ascend towards your ascendant. So if you say to yourself, God, my mom never loved me. I had someone sit with me yesterday. She was given away at 2 years old. Her mom decided she didn't want to have a child. I mean, so she left her with her father, and her father had to go to work. So her father left her with her grandmother, and her grandmother wasn't a very happy person. By 4 years old, her mother came back. And as she told the story at first, because you know how we all numb out, she was numb and just telling me the story. But then as I took the chart, because her sun and moon were squared, it was a perfect example. I said to her, the first thing I said to her in the beginning of the session was, were your parents divorced at a young age? That's because her sun was in fire and her moon was in water. So yes, her parents were divorced at a very young age. And did the imprint affect you? And are you not in relationship now? No, I'm not in relationship now. She's very ambitious because it was cardinal, Aries to Cancer, driven, but not necessarily emotionally able, because the imprint of her childhood, which was no doubt karma, was affecting her. And then at the beginning, she told me the story. In the middle of the session, when I started to unpack with her, I said, honey, I told you this at the beginning of the session. You're a big spirit. You took on a lot of pain. I'm here to help you rewrite that story. Let's change the narrative. Would you be willing to be vulnerable with me? And then she started to cry. So then she opened up. I'm lonely. Okay, well, guess what? That's a universal voice for people that are married 25 years. Lonely is a symptom of you not being in touch with your spirit. To be able to say, I love that you're here. I love being alive. That comes only when you delve into your chart and you remember, oh my God, I feel so alive now. The chart, the first level of astrology, why I'm so passionate about teaching you compassion, is because this class really does assist you. You can't believe what happens at the end of level 1. If you read the comments in the testimonials, which are coming out this week, about why level 1, and we have these payment plans. It's not that expensive. It's a period of 6 weeks that you can pay. I think they get like a 2-month pay period. Is that right? It can break it down even longer. I think that's right, Carrie. So
Yep.
Don't use money to prevent you from cleaning up your karma. And yes, astrology, applied astrology, is a shortcut to figuring out what happened in your childhood, why your parents were so screwed up, because they were serving you. And that's the momentum that gets you out of that deep wound. Here's a question from Cheryl. I've done all kinds of self-help books and they still died, and they still refused to see my work before he died. What am I doing wrong? The self-help books don't help, except they get you thinking. This is why I love level 1. And you just have to, trust me when I tell you this. You have to get in the trenches and you have to process. You have to journal. You have to talk. You have to share it with other people. But most important, what you have to do, Miss Self-Help Book Collector, is change the story. So in my son's story, he's going to become a man and a father, hopefully become a very strong male. Forget the father part. He doesn't want to have kids. To give himself power to reclaim his right. In my story, I had to take this unbelievably dramatic family, and I am working on a memoir that I'm so resistant about because it's such a hard story. But I've taken, the reason why I'm not wanting to work on it is because I've lifted it up. I've taken the pain body that I lived with. I had an ulcer my whole childhood. I didn't know it till I was 17 and got to the first doctor. But why did my stomach hurt the whole time? Because it was so painful. God, I lived like that. And then I had really bad acne because I was in so much pain about my stomach. So now I think back to that and I think, oh my God, I'm having so much fun. And I want to say to you, give yourself permission to rewrite the definitions of happy, because happy comes with grit in it. It's kind of like it starts off dirty. You're happy because you took the pain and you lifted it up. You're happy because you learned how to be happy. It's not as simple as I'm suddenly happy. It takes work. Clearing karma is a full-time job. But once you get over the hump, you start drinking lemonade. And you don't do it with sugar. You start to learn about stevia, and then you learn about honey, and then you learn about drinking straight. It's almost so many versions of how to clear your karma. Yeah, the hearts are coming in, Carrie, because I can tell you that I did it. I did it. I'm proud to say, I used to be self-conscious about it, that my childhood wound, it's so soft now. And I look at my family, and I have one family member who took the astrology one, and it's just helped her so much. She's going to do it again because she loved it so much. But my other family members, I have to be very careful. I honestly can say honestly that my Aquarius nature, the Aquarian age, allowed me to walk away from the bond and the binding and the stickiness. I love those people, but I am not at all obligated by any stretch of the imagination because I share blood with them. I do not feel obligated. That's the freedom. And I have great compassion for them. I pretend I am them. And I think, God, I wish I could teach them astrology. I wish so much that I could say to them, makes me want to cry. Like, they probably thought that I'm so lucky, Debbie. That's what my nickname was when I was little, Debbie, that I came in happy, but I've done so much work, and you know I've done so much work, and I'm inviting you to come join me. So the invitation to your family being screwed up is, it's not a bad thing. And Gina, you're going to love this class, and you're going to be one of the people that writes back to the group at large and says, like, whenever you see the people that have taken the class, when they write about what happened, they say, run to take this class, don't walk. And we have a limited number, you guys, so sign up. There's only 10 people in each class. You know that? You're in an intimate group with one mentor. And that intimate group is for a reason. So you can do your personal work and be witnessed. You can't read self-help books and get the help to the degree. It can certainly give you insights. I read them. Not so much anymore. But it can give you comfort that you're not alone. Okay, yes, I was jumping for joy. It's 11:33 a.m. in Hawaii. I'm giving you my newest, coolest shirt. And look how cool the back is. Isn't that cool? See, now I'm uninhibited. I become myself. Why? Because I took level 1, because I made level 1, because I designed it, because I've been channeling it, because Luciella talks through me, my favorite channeler. She's my support lady. Okay, do we have any more questions? I think you guys figured out. Here's the answer. Your family's not a mistake. You did not get pushed on the bus. You chose to come here. You really did. You chose to be on planet Earth. You were given that family as a karmic agreement. You do not have to be bound to them, but you do have to do the work to get off of you the patterns by going straight into them. You can't get rid of your karma without eating poison. And every healer will tell you that they ate the poison to make them into colors. And now look at the colors. Look at the colors. Look at that pretty flower. That's the colors. Everybody, you have to sign up for the school. If I had my way, I would give it away for free. That's what I keep doing. I just want everybody to do it, but we only have so much room. So is there a way for them to sign up for the school? Carrie, is it right there?
It is. Yep. It's in the comments.
Whatever your family dynamic was, it wasn't a mistake. Everybody has a problem. Everybody has a story, and everyone's is so, I don't know if you know this, at level 3, after you finish the 2 levels and you come to be with me either in Hawaii or in Boulder, Everyone goes around the circle and we hear their stories. And then you fall in love with these women because you see what they had to go through to get to their character. And that's what you have to do. You have to learn the hard way. I don't know who made that up. I think it's dumb. But astrology is a shortcut. You want a shortcut to healing? Get the spiritual angle from God's eyes. See through God's eyes. Let God's eyes be the voice of compassion that will allow you to realize, oh my God, I'm not alone. And that God loves me. And that's why she gave me this crazy story. If I told you my childhood, you guys, you just go, no, Debra, yeah, it was horrible. It was so scary. I heard recently, well, not so recently, probably about 6 years ago. It felt recent because I never knew that one day, I can't believe this is a true story, but my brother told me, so I have to believe him. Because apparently I was home. My father, many of you may know, was being tried for a court case that was a conspiracy case because he was involved with a character who was part of the Purple Gang in Detroit called the Jewish Mafia. And they wanted that man. His name was Sammy Norberg. I just loved him. So they set up this whole stage, this whole thing to hope to get my dad so they could get Sammy, so they could get them all to go to jail because they had a lot against Sammy. And apparently they came to my house, knocked on the door with a warrant to find my dad. And we had an attic in the kitchen, in the closet. And my brother put my dad up in the attic. And then they came around the house looking for my dad. They were so sure he was there and they couldn't find him. And they left. Now, you pretend you're me. I'm a vibrational sensitive. I wasn't aware of it. And you wonder why I had an ulcer. Think of the pressure and the fear and the trauma of these people walking through your house looking for your father, and you're a traditional good little girl and you're living in a normal situation. You're not in a war zone. You're not in a country where they have violence. You're in Oak Park, Michigan. And they're walking through my house, and my little vibrational sensitive self, because I am an empath, as many of you are that are interested in healing. And I couldn't figure out why I always had a stomach ache. So now I could use that story. I don't have anxiety anymore. I don't have a stomach ache. Once in a blue moon I do, but it's like 0 to 10, about 0.5. Hardly ever do I get anxious. Hardly ever do I have a stomach ache. And it's all because I did my work. So I'm asking you to do the same. Isn't that a horrible story? Little Debbie, the police are coming. They're walking around my house. I'm in my bedroom. They come in. I see the police. I don't remember it because I was probably I blacked out so much, as we all do. Good for us. The more important thing is, what do you remember now about how healthy you can be? Do you believe me? That's what I'm going to leave you with. Do you believe me when I tell you that you can change your karma by doing work, and that every one of you came here? That's what my book is about, to clear the karma for you, for your family, but most of all, for our planet. Because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be here today at the sweet age of 60,000 years old on a computer, looking at a green dot, talking to all of you if I hadn't done my work. And I'm authentically embracing that I am a little bit eccentric. Hey, you guys, there's a lunar eclipse on January 31st. It's a full moon in Aquarius and Leo, and it's really the time to have your freak flag fly. Say it really loud. Freak flag fly! Freak flag fly! We get in trouble because there's neighbors. But you can let your freak flag fly on January 31st. Okay, that was it. How do you feel, Carrie? Do we do a complete job?
Yeah, definitely. Again, I put the link to Applied Astrology in the comments. And if you have any questions, just make sure you leave a comment here and our team will get back to you.
Love, 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 love. Happy Friday.